You know exactly how this specific, incredibly frustrating cycle begins. It is Sunday night, and you feel a massive, overwhelming surge of motivation to finally change your life. You write down a strict, highly ambitious schedule for the entire upcoming week. You're going to wake up at 6 in the morning, exercise, eat perfectly, and work on your neglected project for 3 solid hours. You go to sleep feeling deeply proud of this new, highly disciplined version of yourself. But then Monday morning arrives, the alarm rings in the dark, and a heavy, suffocating paralysis takes over your entire body. The motivation is completely gone, entirely evaporated as if it never existed at all. You hit snooze, you skip the workout, and you spend the rest of the day endlessly scrolling on your phone. Society has a very harsh, incredibly unforgiving diagnosis for this repeating behavior. They simply tell you that you lack discipline, that you are fundamentally lazy, and that you have zero willpower. They say that successful people just push through the pain, and that you are simply choosing the path of least resistance. And after hearing that narrative enough times, you slowly begin to internalize that toxic, heavy shame. You look at your graveyard of abandoned routines, and you genuinely start to hate yourself for being so broken. You wonder if you are missing a fundamental character trait that everyone else seems to possess effortlessly. But today I want to offer you a completely different, heavily researched biological diagnosis. You are not inherently lazy, and you do not suffer from a broken moral compass. You are simply misunderstanding what discipline actually is on a purely neurological level. To understand why you keep failing to stick to your plans, we have to look closely at your physical brain architecture. We culturally treat discipline and willpower as if they are magical, invisible traits of human character. We believe you are either born with the grit of a Spartan warrior, or you are doomed to be a chronic flake. But neuroscientists have recently mapped this exact behavior to a very specific, highly physical region inside your skull. It is called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, or the AMCC. You need to stop thinking of discipline as a personality trait and start thinking of the AMCC exactly like a physical muscle. When you do something you naturally love or something that is incredibly easy, the AMCC completely sleeps. When you feel a massive spike of midnight motivation and excitedly write a schedule, the AMCC is not involved at all. That is just a cheap, effortless flood of dopamine giving you the temporary illusion of action. But the exact moment you are faced with a task that you actively, intensely do not want to do, the AMCC wakes up. This specific region of the brain only fires when you encounter deep psychological friction. When you do the hard thing anyway, the AMCC literally grows thicker, denser, and physically stronger. But when you avoid the friction, hit the snooze button, or close the laptop, the AMCC shrinks and atrophies. This is the exact biological trap that has kept you completely paralyzed for years. Because your high-resolution brain is highly sensitive to discomfort, you have spent years avoiding the heavy friction of difficult tasks. Every single time you quit early, you inadvertently starve this specific region of the brain. Your lack of discipline is not a profound moral failure. It is simply severe, prolonged muscle atrophy. Your AMCC is currently so weak that it literally cannot lift the heavy boulder of a 3-hour work session. You are essentially walking into a cognitive gym, having never lifted a weight, and trying to deadlift 500 pounds. Of course, your nervous system immediately collapses, triggers a functional freeze, and sends you back to bed. Your brain recognizes the massive gap between your ambition and your biological capacity, and it hits the emergency brake. It floods your body with exhaustion to protect you from what it perceives as an impossible, highly dangerous threat. You sit on the couch feeling incredibly guilty, not realizing that your brain thinks it just saved your life. You cannot punish or shame your way out of a biological survival response. But the incredibly beautiful truth about the human brain is a concept called neuroplasticity. The AMCC is highly plastic, meaning it can be rebuilt, thickened, and strengthened at any age. Studies on superagers show that older adults who constantly challenge themselves have the AMCC density of a 20-year-old. They did not maintain that density by accident. They maintained it by consistently seeking out the exact friction you avoid. But you cannot rebuild it by watching more motivational videos or buying an expensive new planner. You have to completely change the rules of the game using the 2-minute AMCC protocol. Right now, your brain demands that you complete massive, hours-long tasks to feel any sense of success. We need to deliberately lower that baseline to bypass your amygdala and isolate the AMCC entirely. Tomorrow morning, when you feel that heavy, familiar resistance telling you not to do the work, you are going to pause. You are going to verbally acknowledge that the friction you feel is not a biological sign to stop. That specific feeling of intense resistance is the exact biological weight you need to lift to heal. You are going to sit down at your desk, set a timer on your phone, and commit to exactly 2 minutes of work. You are not going to write a whole chapter. You are going to write one terrible sentence for 120 seconds. You are not going to do a massive workout. You are going to do exactly 5 push-ups. This sounds almost insultingly simple, but neurologically, it functions as a brilliant master key. By making the task aggressively small, you completely neutralize the fear response in your nervous system. Your brain stops seeing the work as a massive threat to your energy reserves, so it lowers the defensive walls. But because you are still doing the exact thing you did not want to do, the AMCC is forced to fire. You are doing a biological bicep curl with a 2-pound weight. It does not look impressive to the outside world, but you are successfully causing micro tears in the muscle. When the 2 minutes are up, you have full permission to completely walk away and quit for the day. In fact, in the very beginning, walking away after 2 minutes is exactly what you should do. You need to prove to your highly suspicious nervous system that you are no longer going to force it into absolute exhaustion. You are slowly rebuilding a foundation of deep biological trust with your own mind. Over the next few weeks, you slowly, carefully increase the weight using progressive overload. You move from 2 minutes to 5 minutes, and eventually to 20 minutes of focused, high-friction work. The absolute magic of this protocol is that the AMCC does not care about the size or importance of the project. It only cares that you successfully navigated the friction and crossed the boundary of your own resistance. Every single time you push through that initial 2 minutes, your AMCC becomes physically denser. And as that physical muscle grows, something incredible happens to your entire perception of reality. Things that used to completely paralyze, you suddenly feel light, manageable, and entirely possible. The heavy brain fog that used to accompany hard work begins to slowly lift and evaporate. You completely stop relying on the cheap, highly unpredictable spikes of midnight motivation to run your life. Motivation is an emotion, and emotions are biological weather systems that constantly change without warning. But a thick, fully developed AMCC is an immovable structural pillar inside your mind. It allows you to calmly execute your plans regardless of the internal weather. I know how deeply frustrating it is to feel trapped inside a mind that refuses to follow your own commands. To know exactly what you need to do to change your life, but to feel physically blocked from doing it. To watch weeks and months slip away while you wait for the motivation to finally return. But you must remember that your lack of discipline is not a permanent, unchangeable identity. You are not a fundamentally broken person who is doomed to fail at everything you start. You are just operating a highly complex biological machine with a severely atrophied muscle. You have been carrying the heavy, exhausting burden of toxic shame for a very long time. You have hated yourself for the days you spent completely frozen on the couch. It is time to finally put that heavy shame down and step back into the cognitive gym. It is time to trade the impossible, punishing standards of perfection for the quiet, consistent reality of micro-reps. Start incredibly small today, forgive yourself entirely for the past, and just lift the 2-pound weight. The friction you feel right now is not the enemy. It is the exact medicine you need to heal. Do your 2 minutes of work today and watch your reality slowly begin to shift. I will see you in the next one.